Each week and every week, we return stronger and better with answers, help, and solutions. We encourage, inspire, and motivate you to take those superior and positive decisions and actions.
And we also believe absolutely in you. We do believe in you. We believe that collectively we can bring about the much needed change for a better Nigeria, a better you, and a better me. Now the program is still Today with John and Helen, and we're live coming your way from the studios of PlusTvAfrica here in Lagos, Nigeria.
And joining us now is the 2023 Rotary International Positive Activator and 2022 Mastercard Foundation Young Impact Associate. Our next guest has over a decade experience with non-profit organizations focused on assisting the needy, especially in youth development, peer education, and mentoring of vulnerable children. Enitan Sophie Oluwa is a Google and Lagos Business School certified digital manager, an associate member of the Institute of Chartered Mediators and Reconciliators. Join us as we welcome Enitan Sophie Oluwa, who is the founder of Natini. I tried to spell your name backwards and it matched. Natini Empowerment and Sustainable Impact Initiative. Quite a mouthful though.
Yes.
And the development practitioner. Absolutely a pleasure that you're able to join us on this show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, so I'm asking, is the workplace still gender biased, even with the revolution of inclusion, everywhere? Is it lip service, in the boardroom? Now, I'm just being curious. Okay, thank you so much for joining us today on the show.
Thank you
John,
so much for having me.
over to you.
We want her to answer that one first.
She will answer it.
Yeah.
But let's get going.
Okay, let's get going. So first, Enitan, tell us, as a young and budding female with relatively little experience in the more or less older work environment, what really has inspired you to focus on gender rights and dignity in the workspace?
Okay, thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here. So for me, it's being born in Nigeria, being born in Lagos, in underserved communities, and I've seen a lot of things around our culture, religion, that just makes you feel out of place. I also think that being born as the first of 3 other girls, you are always being taught in the society that you do not have a place, you do not have a place. This now transcends even into the workplaces, because people take this mentality to their place of work, and you hear things like, I have your type at home. We are colleagues. You say, oh, even my wife at home will not talk to me that way. But I'm not your wife. I mean, I have my own responsibilities here. When we get home, you can be whatever you want to be, but this is the place of work. But of course, this is Nigeria, this is Africa, and it's assumed that if you're born with a phallus, you are more important than somebody who doesn't have.
Okay. Okay, so I'm hearing the Beijing woman talk. I'm hearing the Gen Z, young lady talk. All right, so let's go specific. Can you share some of the common challenges that in the course of your work that you have identified as still things that women are facing in the work environment? Okay,
so the most popular one is sexual harassment. Because for most women, you just have to think, oh, am I wearing what is appropriate? It feels like for having a physique or for having a shape is your own fault or is your own problem. You have to be sure that you wear the appropriate clothes, so to say, even when you don't feel comfortable in it. And there's always this victim thing of, why did you also dress that way? Then it will also surprise you to know that at this age and time, we still have this disparity in pay. A lot of times, you would find out that men earn more than women on the same role. Sometimes the women do not know how to negotiate better. Sometimes it could also be, we have a lot of women who are working mothers, and it's a thing of, oh, I'm taking more roles than her. But we need the women in the society. We need women who can procreate. That is what women do. So how do we, work-life balance is definitely one of the things that we see. And that leads to almost every other thing that we have. So sexual harassment, discrimination, work pay. I think more brands is about tokenism. Everybody wants to feel very cool with the DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. They just want to tell you. You see it in their mission statement. You see it everywhere. They say, we are inclusive. We are inclusive. I'm not sure it is really true.
Okay.
Because the reality says otherwise.
So she answered that question.
She answered that question. Well, I'm going to take her back a bit because I want to know what has really led to all of this. So how does your background in literature and law influence your advocacy work and approach to addressing gender bias? Because it looks like you're growing stronger by the day in being an advocate for gender issues. Yeah.
Okay, so funnily, my inspiration to study law, I studied law as a second degree, and my inspiration to study law came from studying literature. Literature is like a mirror. It gives you this kind of, you can identify certain people. You'll be surprised that people from other climes. Coincidentally, somebody was asking me who is a woman who inspired me, and I talked about Nawa El-Sadawi. She was the one who wrote Woman at Point Zero. She's an Egyptian. She was a medical practitioner. So there was a way she described womanhood, described everything that was happening that led to advocacy. So literature inspired me to take another degree in law because I really wanted to know what these policies, funnily we have a lot of policies, we have a lot of laws, but implementing them is another thing. We go for most of these conferences, conventions, we sign treaties, oh, Nigeria is a party to this. Come down to implementation, there's a problem. So for me, I'm looking at legislative advocacy. These laws that you are signing into, everything you are talking about, Nigeria will be a part to CEDAW. Nigeria, you will find us everywhere, copy and paste most of these laws. But how are we implementing them in the home? That's the problem, and that is what I want to focus on. I know there are a lot of people working in that angle, but it's never enough because our reality is saying otherwise.
It really isn't ever enough. So I mean, so now we get the trajectory now, and quite honestly, I've known Enitan for a minute, and I think I'm quite impressed with the way you're going.
Thank you.
Right? But we'll come back to that.
You know when she was talking about the books and the reality, you know, the same thing the first guest talked about when we went bail is free.
Yeah.
You know, in the books,
yes.
But it's not really. It's never free.
It's just there.
You know,
it's just there in the books.
All right.
So we just sound very, very current. We are doing the global best practice.
Yeah.
We want to be seen.
Yes, to be but we want to sound very cool. That's the steez everybody's maintaining. So we just want to maintain it in our laws.
All right, so what specific strategies can organizations implement now to create a more inclusive and respectful workplace for the woman?
Okay, so because this is something ingrown, and you also find a lot of women play the victim mentality, I do not think victim would solve a lot of things. We need to take charge of our narratives. So I'm looking at it from the area of training. This is something that we have learned subconsciously. I mean, I have a brother at home who is younger, and the whole society makes you feel like he's your brother, so he's older than you when it comes to taking decisions. I am like a mother to this person, but they're like, oh, he's older than you because he's a first son. So it is something subconscious. I think a lot of training. We need to unlearn. We have to come back to unlearn and relearn many of these things that we are already used to. Remember, there's the religion part of it. There's the culture that keeps teaching you these things. So we need to be very, very intentional about this journey. We need to be intentional about it. Train people to understand that because you're a man does not make a woman less. It is a fundamental human right. You have to, basic dignity. Because when women are disrespected, it takes a lot of toll, even on productivity.
True.
And the organization needs to know that when the women who are members of staff or who are working in the organization, they do not feel safe or do not feel okay being at work. They are being shut down in boardroom conversations and discussion. There's a problem. It kills productivity.
Yes.
A woman has an idea. You're talking about, we're having a conversation. A woman has an idea, but because she's not going to be allowed to talk, or she's going to be shut down when she's talking, it's like a very big deal.
Or probably whatever she says is look like not important.
Most times you hear things like, oh, you are being so emotional. A woman is trying to assert her right. A woman is trying to say what it is. And then they just color it gender. They just make it, you look at it from a gender lens. Interestingly, women have the roles they play. Because I know for things like in the tech, when it comes to UX, UI, we need women, we need the emotions of women to look at color marking, to look at the reaction of things. So that's why we need the voices of women in all these things. We need that feminine touch. So when we talk about gender, people think it's like a war. It's not a war. We are equal, but we are not the same. The universe understands the role that the man will play and the woman will play. So it's not supposed to be a war. It's not a battle. It's not a gender. We're not supposed to go at war against one another. I need a man as much as a man needs me. We can complement each other without having to do the battle. But now it's not equal. It's not equal because a man has already been taught to think that I am the man. You get into an argument with the man, and the next thing is telling you, he's taking you traditional. You are in the boardroom or you are in a meeting and you are expecting a woman to serve. It's tea time. A woman who has the same role or even higher, and then they're like, oh, the women should do the serving. I mean, it's...
I like this because, quite frankly, it's a reflection of how much you've thought about this issue. And some of the things you're talking about now, yes, we may smile about it, but they're hitting home, you know, and I mean, I think it's very important. You said something earlier about women playing the victim. A lot of women too play the victim.
Sure.
And I'm happy that that also has been, you know, identified. You know, so it's not really about bashing
and some
the
men
man.
just cash in on that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not like just bashing the male gender, but trying to find.
Yes, I think most times they just know how to trigger. I've fallen victim of it a lot of times. You know, when people understand what you... So a lot of my friends, when they want to have conversations with me, they just say, oh, when you bring the gender thing, you're going to trigger her. They know. So, but now I'm learning this emotional intelligence thing to just say, okay, I don't want to engage in this kind of conversation with certain people because regardless of what you say, they do not get it. They cannot understand it. So why waste all of my strength having this conversation? I want to have a conversation with somebody who is willing to listen, who is willing to just see it from the other side. Because the truth is, this imbalance actually takes a lot of toll on men, if you look at it. And this is why, what we do as gender rights activists, we say that, see the mental health of men today. We push a lot of things. I pity men. When you look at the suicide rates, the mental health of men is a lot. It's a lot of load being put on the men. Women will just sit and say, it's your role as the man. Of course, we have the men who want to enjoy traditional benefits from women, but are not ready to do the 21st century roles. You want a woman who's going to be your chef, who's going to be your cleaner, who's going to do everything. Fine. Love me a man who wants me to do all that. I mean, I want to be a baby girl. But you also, if you want to be the traditional man, then be a full-time traditional man, not a part-time traditional man when it suits you, and a Gen Z man when the narrative is the other way. No.
I like your breakdown of all of this. Now,
she's very objective and practical.
You're practical. Let's see how much you've been able to walk the talk.
Yeah, so
right?
walking the talk.
Yeah.
For me, gender activists, like you just said, are the ladies that you have come across with. Are we empowered to really stand our ground to say no, this can't happen? And if it does happen, do we know what to do?
Okay, so here's the thing. For me, like I said, that's why I came up with the whole victimhood thing. I feel like a lot of people have been conditioned to just think, oh, I'm a victim. And the more you think about yourself as a victim, you can't conquer any situation. I feel like for every situation, you need to just do like a reflective thinking, analyze, where is my strength in this area? And this is where knowledge comes to play. I've been very lucky with mentorship, even though most of my mentorship used to come from the books. It was from the books I read, I found a lot of way to walk around the maze I found myself in the society. But I've been more intentional with mentoring young women and girls who are ready to take the walk, because not everybody is ready to take the walk.
Okay.
I've also been a part of, so we have this program EMP. I volunteer a lot. That's one thing I've been doing, because if you are asking to be paid for some of these things, it might not work. And if you want to see change in the society, then you need to be willing to walk the talk. We have this group, Evolve Mentorship Program. It's for young ladies between 15 to 35. We talk to them, we let them know practical steps. We share a lot of, so when I talked about being triggered, I used to be triggered, but I know it was from the conversations we had in...
You're no longer triggered?
Oh, well, I'm taking the angle of it because it's not easy. It's not really, really easy. When you see those things, you know it. So it's very painful for me because I know some of these things. Most times you hear people want to even gaslight you and they say, oh, you're just always talking about the girl child. Who's attending to the boy child? Okay, I'm working on the girl child. Why can't you work on the boy child? You are the man. Why are you gaslighting me, or why are you trying to manipulate me? I can understand a girl more than a man would. You would understand a boy. I don't have wet dreams, so there's no way I can talk to a boy about it. I don't have blue balls, but I have period. I can talk to girls. I can talk to young girls in practical terms to say, these are the challenges, these are the mistakes I made. I do not think you should make the same mistakes. And this is where mentorship comes in. This is where training comes in. When you talk about mentorship and training, I missed opportunities because I did not have information on certain things. I want to empower the next girl to say, this is your time. The world is looking out for you. There's space for you in the boardroom if you empower yourself. And this goes back to what you're saying. We're not talking about tokenism. It's not just coming out to say, I'm a woman, so because of that, you need to give me. You're not just getting a place on the table, but be qualified for the table. Make sure that you're coming to the table with everything it needs to be on that table. Because if you do not have what it takes to be on the table, then you are spoiling the role or the chance for the next person. It's like just spoiling the ladder, because no other woman will be given a chance to come to that table. Because the last person who came, what happened? Yeah. When we talk about not too young to rule, a lot of people will tell you, oh, the young people they've given the opportunity, what did they do? Yes, they may be right, but this is the time to empower the older people who are still younger. We teach our boys. My own organization, when we do a lot of things, I remember our graphic designer, when it was time for the International Day of the Boy Child, January 31st, elimination for violence against men, and I told him, oh, Mr. Hale, we're going to do this. And he's like, I'm so surprised. You are usually focused on girls. Why are you talking about the boy? I said, it is important. Because I have had to live with badly raised boys. Yes. So when you focus on girls, there is no gender activist who will not try to be balanced. When we focus on the girl child, we are raising girls who will end up with badly behaved boys and men. Exactly. And it is just like scattering everything. It's going back to ground zero. Okay. So you teach a girl to be empowered to do all of these things she's supposed to do, to even assert her rights. You talked about how do they do it, how do you stand up for yourself. But when the man does not even know that I have a right in the first place, because he's still living in the woods, nothing can be done.
Natine Empowerment for Sustainable Impact Initiative.
Yes, thanks.
Now tell us. Yeah, I mean you've pointed out one or two programs. What has Natine itself done, to help? Okay, so help all of this?
So for Natine, we are focused on the vulnerable people, which has to do with male and female, not just girls now. Like I said, I try to look at it from a balanced way. Even though the women are more in that number, because I mean, it's a girl child that's going to get pregnant. It's a girl child that's going to pick infection that would affect her more than the boys. A guy can just dust himself, while the girl that impregnated is incubating the baby in the next 9 months and has to stay at home with the stigma and shame and extra 1 or 2 years nursing the baby, is moving on with his life, and then they come back dragging baby mama, baby daddy thing. So we want to focus on the girls. We also now focus on persons with disabilities, because we feel like our weakest point tells us a lot about our society and how we handle them. There are a lot of vulnerable people in the society, particularly persons with disabilities. So we want to focus on them and empower them. Not just trying to say, giving them fishes, but how do you know your place? And how do you come with value to the table? So what we've done is we do a lot of advocacy, a lot of collaboration, supporting persons with disabilities on how to get what they need to live fulfilling lives. Because our system does a lot. And almost everybody is a potential candidate of disability. So when you live with that empathy to understand that 1 minute you're on the road, the next you're being knocked down by a bike or by a car, and you're ending up with a disability, you want to control that narrative and support every other person and ensure that the policies that we have in place, the Disability Act right that is supposed to cater to persons with disability, is being implemented the way it should be, not until you fall a victim of that.
Exactly. When I see opportunities like this, I make Helen grin with envy. And all of this, she's applying to her Rotary Club as well. She's president of
I'm not green with envy.
She's president of her Rotary Club. That's the Rotary Club of
New Lagos Ikeja.
New Lagos Ikeja.
Congratulations.
I'm trying to drag Helen.
What should come on?
I'm sitting down here and I'm like, what a show today, John. What a show. Because it's all about humanity.
It's all about humanity.
You're just moving on your life as an individual and not putting into consideration what the next person is going through. And the next person going through worse stuff, there are lots and lots of them. And so if people like you are not focusing on helping, then we are in a big mess. We are a big mess. So I'm really, really so touched that you've taken, and you're so passionate. I see fire, coming out the way you're
I think it's from experience. Like I said, growing up in an underserved community, I've been very lucky with kindness of strangers, and the best thing I can do when I enjoy this kind of kindness is to pass the baton and ensure that you just help people who cannot even help you back. I've been helped by people I cannot pay back. So I just want to give back the best way I can. And like you mentioned, one of the best things that happened to me as a 20-year-old was being a member of the Rotary International. As a Rotaractor, I learned a lot of things. That's why I even got the inspiration to start my organization from and say, okay, yeah, I want to focus with my technical knowledge of working with persons with disabilities. I live with disabilities that are not pronounced. If I do not tell you about it, you might not know. And I also understand the role of prevention of these things. This also applies to gender and everything. Because when a woman is empowered, women who are like the primary caregivers of children with disabilities, when you empower them with the necessary information they need, it makes the journey a lot easier. It makes the journey a lot easier. Finally, we have opportunities and support that they can get. But when they do not have this information, how do they tap into it?
Exactly.
So information is like one of the key roots of poverty. Poverty sometimes is not even lack of resources. Not having the right information to make the decision, quality decision for your life, that is poverty in itself.
Okay. I believe we're getting ready to round up. So on this note, I would like to get a final word from you as advice, you know, to the young girl out there, or to the woman who is already feeling, you know, some of the things you just mentioned in the workplace. How do they break through it?
Okay, so first of all, I'll just say that you shouldn't see yourself as a victim. Ensure that you report this through. A lot of times we just get emotional. We just let our emotions overwhelm us. Oh, I want to get back at this person. And the sad part of it is when you as a woman retaliate or you do something, it's that anger that gets amplified, and then it becomes the norm. There's a lot of narrative about women not helping women. It's not true. It's not true. I feel like women could also be very supportive of one another. Sometimes I think it's a narrative that is being even spinned by the male folk to just make us attack one another. We just want to attack each other. Because the next woman I'm seeing her, I'm not going to be seeing you as an opponent. I'm seeing you as somebody, a sister we can collaborate with. Because you understand where I'm coming from, you understand my stress. So I'll just say that for every young girl out there who is watching, the best thing you can do for yourself is submit yourself to mentorship. When you're going to, somebody has been there, the person understands the pain, and also be willing to walk the talk. A mentor is not somebody who is going to just make you jump through the entire process. They will help you with mistake, but you need to own your narrative. It is your stage. You have to dance. You have to practice for the big break, but ensure you document. Do not get too emotional about it. We need a lot about emotional intelligence in the workspace, but document and report, because there's always a pattern. Somebody did this and say, oh, I was just joking. Behind that, I was just joking. It might not be a joke, but when you report it, then there's a way we can trace this thing and say, oh, she has said this before. Reporting it, you have the evidences, not just getting emotional, but having it documented.
Okay, we're not going to get emotional because we have to wrap up the show.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so.
Oh, well. So on that note, I would like to say, and I believe so, that the peak performing woman, you know, really, really has moved, you know, on.
True.
And probably, I said to herself, I don't have any time to look behind me and whoever is envying me or setting me up. You know, I know where I'm headed, and that's where I'm going, irrespective of what. And she's focused and goal-oriented. And I'm sure you like that woman.
Yes, I do. I like her. Thank
you for coming.
Well, for me, I must say that this conversation has shed a lot of light on the subject of interest, you know, to all of us, not just male but female. Sophie Enitan Oluwa, I'd like to thank you so much for being our guest. Thank you so much for having me. I mean, the information that you've given us today on this show has really been an eye-opener to so many of us. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and John, something you're forgetting?
No. I'm waiting for you to introduce. You need to introduce. A lot of your
students waiting, you know, for that fine touch.
Yes. So we'll go on to my nugget for today, just to wrap up the show. And the nugget is this: you cannot travel within and stand still without. So we say that hard work reaps reward, and any man who is bereft of dreams remains static. Personal improvement, for instance, is never standing for a successful man and, for a man to be fair unto himself. He refuses to dig into his inner self to find his inner strength, So the power of self-expression is the key that opens up our talent box for the world to see. So you have to have the ability to look inside, reach within, speak, and be heard. And that will be my nugget for today.
And that's what she said. You need to
look inward,
look inward
to be able to
find out what you,
yourself.
who you are, and then walk the
yourself.
talk.
So
Okay.
that's it for today.
Enitan, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me.
Having you and being a part of John's final words on his nugget. As
Ah.
the coach on this show.
Oh, yes.
Okay, and we want to believe that you have had a good time with us on the show. Like we promised from start that it was going to be a great outing. We hope that you've been impacted. We hope that some of the issues that have been raised by our two guests on the show today, you know, they're things that will get you thinking about where you are in the society and what you need to do to help the next person. I'm Helen Odele. Always a pleasure to be on the show with you.
And I'm John Sanaya. I'm out.
See you next week. Bye now.